Tonight on Joy News Prime, Millennium Development Authority, in its first ever public comments on the PDS concessionaire agreement suspension, denies any wrongdoing. Stay tuned in for their side of the story, exclusive to Joy News. The Office of the Special Prosecutor, meanwhile, says it has no jurisdiction to investigate corruption allegations that are emerging about the PDS deal. Also in the bulletin, lawyers for 4 Indian businessmen and 2 Ghanaians arrested by national security operatives engaged the authorities on the basis for the arrest. Takrady family claims 4th set of human remains discovered by the police at Nkrofo on Tuesday.
As my who is moving up and down that time, so I've been calling from US when I heard them 3, and he went and he said the police said you should exercise patience because maybe ours is missing.
In business,
Auditor General to investigate and charge Ghana Revenue Authority for giving out tax exemptions without approval from Parliament.
You can't impose tax or remove tax unless with Parliament. And it continued to say that even if you want to exempt somebody from tax, you must receive approval from Parliament.
And dietitians are warning about the late-night consumption of a meal that's become rather popular in recent years.
Can even at a point in time have or experience what we call hypertension or maybe diabetes and other cardiovascular conditions.
I'm Israel. Joy News Prime comes to you live from the Joy News studio at Kokomlimli here in Accra with digital address GA09925339. Stay tuned. In our first story, the human remains discovered by the police at Nkrofo in the Western region on Tuesday has been linked to a female who disappeared in Takrady in July last year. Ruth Abaka, who is said to have gone missing on Sunday, July 29, 2018, during church hours, has still not been found a year on. Her grandmother, Veronica Anza Kobna, says they believe strongly the remains discovered by the police are that of her grandchild. Java tells correspondent Inathalia Kwanza the family has not been happy with the police's handling of their case.
She has completed Diabene Senior High when I came. Then it was on that 29th, they have to go to church at Diabene. They normally go to Diabene Methodist Church. But me, I have to go to Bethel. And then because I'm a caretaker at Amanfo Methodist Church. So in the morning, normally as I do, I give their money, I put it there and then go. So when I was coming from the church, I have to go to Diabene Methodist Church and pick them up to the house. But when I went, she went with her senior sister and then the younger sibling. But she was not included. And I asked the senior sister, and I was told that she was on the Sunday school as a Sunday school assistant teacher. And the senior sister was at the adult service. So she said that some of the Sunday school children said she went out and then took a phone and called somebody, which they couldn't hear, and then told the person she was coming because the girls were just around there. And she went off. So we called the mom, and then the mother said if we couldn't find her, we should assess her patient. Maybe she thought she has gone somewhere, I don't know. So she didn't turn up. And then on the Monday, that is 30th July, we called for the local announcement at Diabene. And after the announcement on the afternoon, the senior sister called me and said somebody has called her and said she's with them. And then we should bring an amount of 35,000 Ghana cedis. Okay. And then the number was 020-876-1975.
Okay.
So there I was allegedly know that maybe they have kidnapped her. So we went to the police with my husband, and then we reported the case to them. And the police took the number and called, and the people responded talking to him, the police people. So the next day we went and they reduced, it was like a bargaining. So they reduced the money to 20,000. So we asked that we should talk to her, but formally they refused. Later, they gave the phone to her, and then he said, help me, oh, help me. So I told her to speak our language, the Nzoma language or the Wasa language, but she couldn't. So certain boys said they have found her at Mampong. So we told the police. Then they say if they have found her, then maybe that means she's around. So they were searching. So it was the investigation going on. Anytime we go, they say they are still on it.
All this while, parents are calling out, people are adding their voices to the missing 3 girls. And we never knew of your granddaughter.
No, that is why I said I am not around. And the mother who is supposed even to come, so that it was only my husband who is moving up and down that time. So I have been calling from US when I heard them 3. And he went and he said, the police said you should exercise patience because maybe ours is missing. But even if it's missing, they have to put it on the media. That is why I put it on the social media. So it was just last week. Then we went again and said they have found that one. There's the police who can answer because we have reported. And so far as the case is with the police, you can't take it on your hands. Yes, because we reported to the police, so we are waiting for them to tell us what to do.
We'll bring you a lot more on that later. But over 1,950 bags of fertilizer for Government Planting for Food and Jobs program have been seized by the Ghana Immigration Service at Fiamong in the Upper West region. The smugglers, who used an unapproved route, were arrested by a combined team of immigration and military officers. The fertilizers were loaded in 2 vehicles, were bound for Burkina Faso. The seizure is typical of the challenges the country is faced with when it comes to border control. Correspondent Martina Bogre has more in the following report.
The Hamili Station Officer of the Immigration Service, Chief Superintendent Ajiman Busumpim, disclosed this when the Controller General of the Ghana Immigration Service, Kwame Aswatechi, visited the Fairmore unapproved route. He said there was already a vehicle at the Burkina Faso side waiting to cut the fertilizer.
Minutes after 1, we had information from one of the truck fertilizer being loaded. There's a possibility of smuggling them out of the country. So quickly we had to mobilize men and we came to the spot. Fortunately, we were able to get them. So with the assistance of the military, we were able to convey it to Hamili, the main border. There's 2 trucks, one Hyundai Mighty and Kia Rhino. A total of 1,950 bags.
1,950 bags. Yeah. What was the inscription on the bag?
NPK fertilizer meant for Planting for Food and Jobs programs.
Planting for Food and for Jobs program. And we were sending it to.
They were sending it across. Okay. According to the guy, he's going to make almost about 60,000 profit on it.
60,000 Ghana cedis.
Yes,
wow.
Okay, from Ghana to Burkina Faso. Actually, there was a truck awaiting at the Burkina side.
To offload?
Yes, to offload. But before we got there, they have responded.
Chief Superintendent Busumpim said the smugglers attempted bribing the team.
They started with some negotiations. They started from 3,000 Ghana cedis all the way to 15,000. For that we have on record. But later, as I said, we had to call in the military because we were only 6 and the people were many. So we continue with the negotiation and we go to around 25,000 before the military people came. Yeah, because we are thinking that if we take this, then we have really disappointed the president. We've disappointed our Controller General because this is what we are all fighting against. So we didn't see any need. So we want to assure them that here is not a ground that they can perpetrate those crimes. They can take it elsewhere.
The Controller General of the Ghana Immigration Service, Kwame Aswatechi, assured the men the issue has been forwarded to the appropriate quarters and the matter will be resolved.
Information. I decided to send it to the appropriate authorities. So when we get back to Accra, we will know what to do. I won't tell you what we're going to do. So, but you hear from us positively. I mean, that's a good job. Because if these fertilizers are being smuggled to Burkina. Apart from the effect on the economy, that is per the agri, there's also the security aspect of fertilizer, what it can be used for. So you've done well, kudos. So like I said, we'll get to Accra, then we'll meet as management and decide what to do next. An eye-opener for all of us. Security is not only for the security agencies. Elsewhere, you'll find that there's an old lady spying somewhere in the window. You know, and you see something that she's not quite sure of, she'll call.
Meanwhile, lack of security posts and unmanned entry points on the Ghana-Togo-Burkina borders in the Upper East region are fueling criminal activities there. Even for manned stations, inadequate logistics challenge efforts by officers to clamp down on criminal activities. Aside smuggling of banned items, residents say armed robbery is rife and lack of collaboration among security officials makes it difficult to track and arrest criminals. In today's story, as part of our series on the state of Ghana's borders, Mahmoud Mohamed Nuruddin travels through 5 border towns, investigating cross-border activities between Ghanaians and their counterparts in Togo and Burkina Faso.
Criminals capitalize on this porous entry point to commit all manner of illegality. Robbery is becoming the most widespread as residents recount their experiences.
So where I am standing is Ghana, but if you move a bit, I mean some few steps away from where I am standing, up there is Togo. And this is exactly where residents say most crimes have been committed for the past few days, and they are not happy about the situation here.
Yeah, the incident that happened here is that one of our brothers came from Togo. He went to see one of our relatives there, and he's coming back, and 2 armed robbers just attack him by the river here. When they just cross him, they remove the gun.
This is one of 2 approved entry points, Pulumankum in the Pusiga district. Officers here declined to speak on record, but they say multiple unapproved entry points and lack of logistics for security personnel here remain the biggest challenge. Only 1 patrol vehicle is available for patrols at the entry points on a daily basis. This is Kulungungu, another approved entry point in the district. Everything here is done perfectly for travelers and vehicle owners. These long trucks carrying onions from Niger have to undergo lots of documentation to be allowed to enter Ghana. Both customs and immigration officials must be alert, as they always make sure checks are done properly on travelers. But just some meters away is another unapproved entry point, providing access to many foreigners who either ride or walk.
So the building you see behind me, these buildings, are in Burkina Faso, and far away from my extreme left is the border over there, the Burkina border. And so what happens here is that people can walk in and out of Kulungungu without passing through the border over there.
Last month we experienced this, and we follow a thief who ran inside here, that we can't go after him because he has already crossed the border, and because there's no security here, he can't just pass there. He passed here and walked to Burkina.
There are many unapproved routes both Ghanaians and foreigners use to ply their trade, legal or otherwise. On June 24, 2019, 3 police officers from Togo entered Ghana to arrest a suspected fraudster at Congo in the Timpani district. The officers did not seek any clearance or even collaborate with their Ghanaian counterparts. Reliable sources say the Togolese used one of the unapproved routes to enter the country. Angry residents of Congo attacked the officers and seriously injured one of them and seized the weapon of the other. The Togolese officer was hospitalized, and it took the intervention of Ghanaian security personnel to restore calm. The situation at Mognori in the Boko municipality is not different. These residents are also alert due to proximity to where gunmen from Burkina Faso were spotted a few months ago. They say empowering security personnel to man this area is paramount. This river separates Ghana from Burkina Faso. Just like many porous entry points in the Burkina area, there's a lot of free trade here, and all one needs to do is to be able to cross the river. These young men have taken it upon themselves to monitor and report any suspected individual. They spend almost 6 hours monitoring while helping others with their luggage to cross the river. Isaka Salifu is one of them.
Anytime we spot a suspected criminal, we inform the immigration officers so that they would come and arrest him.
Idrisu Salifu is a Burkinabe but collaborates with the Ghanaian counterparts to report any suspected criminals. Salifu has been working closely with his Ghanaian friends since the news of gun attack in Burkina Faso. From Wedana, Pulmankum, Pulungugu, Bimpela, Mognori, and all other border entry points, both approved and unapproved, the spirit of West African integration comes to life. People walk across the borders to and from Ghana, Burkina Faso, and Togo. This can, however, be the Achilles heel of a region grappling with security concerns because criminals explore porous borders to commit crime. There are reported cases of armed robbery along the borders in the Boko area. Mahmoud Mohammed Nuruddin for Joy News.
You're watching Joy News when we're taking a break, but still hiding the bulletin. The Millennium Development Authority, in its first ever public comment on the PDS concessionaire agreement suspension, denies any wrongdoing.
We did everything right and we went to every length to protect the interests of Ghana. However, let us all be patient and wait for the conclusion of the process.
Stay tuned in for the side of the story exclusive to Joy News. The Millennium Development Authority, the agency which supervises the selection of a concessionaire and the private sector participation in Ghana's electricity sector, has denied any wrongdoing in the award of the concession to PDS. Government last week suspended the agreement and returned management of the sector in the southern half of the country back to ECG over suspected fraud with the demand guarantee used by PDS in securing the deal. In his first ever public comment on the saga, MIDA says it did nothing wrong. Now, head of reform at MIDA, Michael Ewa, has been speaking with my colleague, George Yafe.
The deadline of 1st March that MCC had communicated to the government of Ghana to be the transfer date. Here, you ask me why I'm mentioning MCC. Remember, Ghana is doing this project because of the compact between Ghana and the United States of America, and there are requirements in there. So it is important for us to understand that government had committed to announcing the major tariff review that was going to be after 1st March, and therefore we had to solve the problem in the best way possible.
I get you that every stakeholder should have done his or a bit, but you are going along with regulations and laws. At that point in time, did you realize that if government doesn't do this, it would impact on whoever is managing the concession, and therefore we can cancel the process because they have not met that critical requirement?
Listen, it has always been obvious to everybody in the process that there are conditions that at every stage we all must meet. But you don't set out a process to say that as soon as I have the slightest difficulty, I'm killing the process. When you are confronted with problems, you think about the best way to solve the problem. So in the absence of a major tariff review, the company could not approach any bank, but it came up with the idea that insurance guarantees are equally acceptable in transactions like this. And around the world, we have rules governing, we have rules governing how these transactions are processed. And the rules that govern banking transactions in this particular sense are the same rules that govern insurance guarantees.
I get you, sir, the normal business practice, but in your rules that was governing this, was there a provision that if there wasn't a debt guarantee, you can use an insurance to check the issues? Because that is what is being argued, and that you actually massage the process, and that's why we are having this problem now.
We didn't massage the process. Let me explain it again. The transaction we had decided to do, all right? We had 45 conditions precedent. Now, in the agreement, in the transaction agreement, the parties also agreed that they had to meet the 45 conditions before transfer. They also agreed that if they are unable to meet the 45 conditions, they can either waive them or make them conditions subsequent. So it's not like we are setting aside any of the conditions, but the agreement made provision for how to deal with all of them. So it's not a question of massaging the process, but out of the 45 conditions precedent, close to the transfer date, 16 had not been fully met. We'll say 15 plus 1 because the other one was about 80% met. All right. So MIDA and the rest of the stakeholders suggested to government that as for the guarantees, until they had been issued, we should not go ahead with the transfer. There are conditions precedent that we could make conditions subsequent, but for the guarantees, we could not go ahead until they had been issued, and therefore that was the solution we went for. We did not massage the process.
Let's come to the bit about insurance. And again, did you ensure that all the required processes were followed to ensure that PDS didn't submit documents that were not 100% concluded in terms of even signatures and commitment?
Well, I'm not a lawyer here, but I'll tell you how these things happen. Normally, if you would issue a guarantee to me, it's you going to, let's say, a bank or an insurance company to issue the guarantee. And as soon as I take that, the lawyers tell us that in law there's the presumption that the parties are dealing in good faith, and therefore you get a good document. Now let's look at the law in Ghana. CalBank, PDS approached CalBank. CalBank now goes to Danwell Insurance because the law requires that a local insurance company must lead the process. But the amount of money at stake here is not the kind of money that Danwell Insurance alone can handle, and therefore they also look for others to back them, and therefore they went outside Ghana and got backers. And here is how it works. So far as PDS is concerned, the insurance has been issued between them and the companies in Ghana, but the committee, conditions subsequent committee, conditions precedent committee, which is not the conditions subsequent committee because they are still meeting and working together, ensured that to further protect Ghana, in this case, as I've told you, normally it would have been between PDS and the companies issuing the document to them in Ghana, ensured that in the provisions in the policy that was issued as the guarantee, ECG had direct access to Alkut, so that if there is any problem, they can go directly to Alkut to ask for their money and not to ask the companies locally here. So far as I'm concerned, we did everything that had to be done. And again, understand this. If a document is to be issued to MIDA, or for that matter, ECG, if it is come to MIDA, MIDA has the primary responsibility to ensure that they've got the right document. Remember that the conditions precedent committee was basically a facilitator of the processes of engagement among the parties in the transaction. And therefore, understand this, the guarantee was issued by PDS, all right, to ECG and not to MIDA or the committee. But even then, we went the extra mile to say that to protect the interests of Ghana, let us make sure that ECG has direct access to Alkut when there is a problem. For instance, when Alkut issued the policy and it came to Ghana, we looked at it and found that it wasn't notarized. We insisted that it must be notarized. It was taken back to Qatar. They notarized it and brought it.
So as far as you were concerned, all the right things were done, even with respect to this insurance thing. So were you surprised later that it came up that the person who signed it was not supposed to sign it, because per what you had seen, the due diligence, the processes, the right things were followed.
Well, you're asking me the question as if everything you have heard of, or everything that has been said out there is fact. Here is what I'll say.
So it's not the truth that someone said and it was fraudulent document. It's not true.
At this point, there are allegations. The allegations, some allude to fraud, others say they are breaches, etc.
As far as MIDA is concerned.
Happily, our government, the government of Ghana, has promised or has initiated a process of investigations. And I would say that we should be patient to wait for the results of that process. We should not preempt anything. And that is why we have said and will continue to say that anybody who wants to make a comment on this or wants to participate in this must be circumspect.
But these are serious allegations. I appreciate the fact that we know MIDA and what MIDA stands for. It is clear, or from what we are hearing, it raises questions about the work being done by MIDA. For you, if I get from you, it's right that you did all what you have to do, and therefore these allegations that there is fraud and all that, as far as MIDA is concerned, that is not the case. We are subjected to very genuine documents. People who were authorized did sign it, and these documents that were submitted were indeed genuine documents.
I have told you that the policy was issued under rules that govern the issuance of such policies. And one of those rules is that as soon as it is issued, that's it, it's even irrevocable. All right. So as I have said, and I will repeat, we did everything right, and we went to every length to protect the interests of Ghana. However, let us all be patient and wait for the conclusion of the process that the government has begun.
Do you think that the inability to review the tariffs again on the part of government affected PDS in getting the bank guarantee?
Most certainly.
But then why didn't we try to review the process to ensure that this thing doesn't happen?
Well, you're asking me policy questions that I cannot answer. Remember, we are only implementing the government policy.
But as far as I'm concerned from you, you justified your actions. What you did was right. All the documents were scrutinized and you did a good work. We don't want to play in speculations out there, irrespective of who it's coming from.
I can assure you that we are satisfied that we did the right things.
There's more to that interview. In the second half of the interview, Mr. Awuah explains into detail how the bank guarantee, which was a condition President was downgraded to a demand guarantee. Would have that interview coming up in Business in a bit. And as I indicated earlier, we're going to be having the second half of that interview, or we're going to have more of that interview with MIDA regarding the PDS concessionaire agreement, which has been suspended.
You know why I'm smiling?
Why are you smiling?
So who is to be blamed? Government is not at fault. MIDA is not at fault. So who should be held responsible for?
Everybody will say for now that they are not at fault, but I'm sure eventually the full story will come out and we'll get to know who is actually to be blamed.
Hopefully.
My challenge with all that's going on, though, I mean, whoever is found at fault
should be made to...
It hardly ever happens in the country that whoever is found at fault, you know,
it's made to pay for it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, my name is Sandra Sinamaf and I'm here for Business. The Millennium Development Authority, MIDA, says Public Distribution Services, PDS, cannot be blamed over challenges in raising required guarantees to cover ECG's concessionaire. Head of Reforms at MIDA, Michael Awuah, tells Joy Business PDS satisfied all the conditions needed to be selected to manage ECG.
Let me explain it this way. When you have to go for a bank loan, sometimes the bank says they want something we call collateral, which means something they can fall on if for some reason you're unable to pay back the money. Sometimes it is another person standing in for you and providing that guarantee. In international business transactions of this nature, like what we are doing, remember that the assets of ECG remains ECG's assets forever under the transaction. The assets are still Ghana's assets. So whoever is operating the assets will have to pay what we call lease fees, or will have to make lease payments to ECG. It's just like renting a room in your house. I have to pay you every month. So PDS is also, as it were, just for a better explanation, renting ECG assets, and they must pay them every month. So we say, okay, you have promised us that you will pay, but give us something that we can fall on if you don't pay. That is what we call the guarantee for the lease payments. Then also there is a second guarantee they have to issue. You buy power to sell. The power you buy, you must pay for it. You have assured us you will pay. You have demonstrated that you have the financial capacity to pay. But give us something that we can fall on if you are unable to pay. So we call that the BSA payment security. Now, here is where the bone of contention has arisen. We require them to give us what we call a bank guarantee, which means a bank will issue a security of some sort, which will say that if they don't pay, this is what we assure you that you can get your money from. We require the bank to do that for the consortium as part of the transaction arrangement.
Now return to our top story on the Millennium Development Authority, the agency which supervises the selection of a concessionaire and the private sector participation in Ghana's electricity sector, denying any wrongdoing in the award of the concession to PDS. Government last week suspended the agreement and returned management of the sector in the southern half of the country back to ECG over suspected fraud with a demand guarantee used by PDS in securing the deal. In its first ever public comment on the saga, MIDA says it did nothing wrong. Now, Special Prosecutor Martin Amidu also says his office cannot investigate allegations of corruption being bandied about in connection with the PDS Government of Ghana deal that's currently been suspended. Mr. Amidu, in his latest opening letter, among others, cautioned learned Ghanaians to stay away from piling pressure on the office to investigate he has no jurisdiction over. He also describes as wrong the perception amongst the populace that the Office of the Special Prosecutor can investigate and prosecute any criminal offense under the laws of Ghana. Here are extracts of his letter. So I have at a number of fora, both locally and internationally, endeavored to underscore the very limited jurisdiction apportioned to the Office of the Special Prosecutor under Section 79 of the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act 2017, Act 959. My personal website contains postings on my efforts to educate and to lower the expectations of the electorate as to how Parliament curtailed the plenitude of the powers of office set forth in the body of Act 959 in the interpretation Section 79 of the Act. It continues. Just yesterday, August 6, 2019, I read here in Ouagadougou on Ghana Web that the Good Governance Advocacy Group was petitioning the Office of the Special Prosecutor to investigate the circumstances leading to the suspension of the Power Distribution Services Concession Agreement. It wants the office to investigate and prosecute fraudulent activities or suspension over corruption, nepotism, cronyism, favoritism, and usurpation of another minister's powers. The truth is that Section 79 of Act 959 severely restricts the jurisdiction of the Office of the Special Prosecutor to fight corruption and corruption-related offences in Ghana, unlike in other countries that are fully committed to and adhere to the obligations under the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, the African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption, and the ECOWAS Protocol on the Fight Against Corruption in their domestic anti-corruption legislations. The truth is that Section 79 of Act, I have severally explained why the Office of the Special Prosecutor cannot investigate the alleged commission of offences contained in any draft or final 1999 forensic audit of Senate reports by an alleged minister in the government, the senior minister's forensic audit report, the recent bank scandals, and the boast allegations which do not point directly to the suspected commission of corruption and corruption-related offences. So this is, and I wish to repeat hereunder portions of my presentation to an international workshop of auditors in Accra, Ghana, in September 2018 on the role of the Special Prosecutor in strengthening accountability for public funds, the jurisdiction of the office, and hope that it helps well-meaning Ghanaians not to continue to create the impression that the office can be a knight errant roaming at will in search of its own ideals of crimes it wishes to investigate and prosecute. So that's coming from the Special Prosecutor Martin Amidu. Moving on, lawyers for four Indian businessmen who were picked up at Ahujo, Kumasi on Thursday are meeting with national security operatives to establish the basis for the arrest. The 4 Indian businessmen and 2 Ghanaians were picked up by 13 armed national security operatives. Some of the personnel wearing khaki uniforms are said to have seized 2 duffel bags full of cash, 13 mobile phones, gold nuggets, and other gadgets during the operation. We'll tell you more about this meeting, but first listen to a report by our Ashanti regional correspondent Erastus Sasaredonko on the arrest.
The gold was taken by the operatives and he was given this letter. On this letter it says chain of custody form, and it says here National Security ITF, and in here 1 gold nugget 7.13 pounds and 1 gold pellet 1.73 pounds, and the description of offense is gold smuggling, and suspect's name they claim is Francis Mensah Agbi. But he is standing here. He was not arrested, though he was given a document indicating that they've arrested him for gold smuggling. So what happened to you? Omo Jewden.
Omo Jimmy good na ana Jimmy phone season phone. The chire dey omo dey phone na man the good omo dey call. Na omo Jimmy lances am dey to good news so omo dey call.
So he's telling me that they seized his license, that the license that he used to purchase gold. He's a gold dealer. They seized the license, they seized the gold he was holding, they seized his phone as well, but later they gave him back his phone. Omo can be and trust acho ana bi bisa.
Omo yan say me soon because I'm for sika and me bobo say dey go in the bank. Me soon no ono me yan say dia omo handcuff me dia call me because omo handcuff me fan because me kofi me dey makwa ka ache sika wo na no and omo yan say dia omo answer handcuff me omo jam me say me nko nto me frɛ me normal we no so me frɛ be ache me kofi krata no so normal bia ni so a met me afro omo anya omo ba bia omo wo mpo na die chire mpo akɔ ehu de me ka fa ho.
Well, so he's saying that, well, at a point in time, they handcuffed him, and he said, yes, he agrees to that. They should handcuff him and take him along because he has collected people's money to buy the gold. He doesn't know what he's going to tell those people, so he prefers that they arrest him and take him to wherever they are taking the gold. But later on, they released him, and they gave him this paper, said there was a number on the sheet that he should call in case he wants his gold back. But he's been trying to see, there's no number in here he can call. So right now his gold has been seized, and he himself, they've asked him to go. On this sheet here they've written gold smuggling. That's the description of offense, gold smuggling. But here is the man who has been charged with gold smuggling. He's still standing here, and there's no reason as to why he was left here, but they took away his gold nuggets. Let me try to speak with this lady here who was present. He's an occupant of the house. He was present when the operation was done this morning. What happened?
We were just in, and I was sleeping by then, so I heard my mom calling me to come back. There were some people in the house. So in a haste, I just woke up, and when I came out, there was a man, like a bodybuilder, who was in a khaki trousers, in a black shirt, in the bulletproof on him, and then there were guns and knives on him. So when I came out, he just asked me to come forward. Then my dad was outside, so he just also entered from the gate, and they asked him. He was even entering our room. They didn't allow him to enter, so they moved us to where the Indians were, their rooms, and they asked us to just, they are here to make a search. They gave the search warrant to the Indian man. So when they gave it to him, they
asked, do you know what was on the search warrant?
I didn't see it.
And did they tell you for what crime they are?
They didn't tell us.
Okay.
So after then, they asked for our phone. They were like, where is everyone's phone? Then when they ask for your phone, you just go in and bring it. And when I was going for my phone from where I stay, they followed me till I got the phone. So when I got the phone, they still followed me and brought me back to where the Indian men were. Then when they asked of your name, they will use a paper there, like a paper solid,
like a sticker.
Yes, on their name. Then they will write your name and they will ask for your password.
Just like this. This phone belongs to the gentleman whose gold was seized. So this is how they did it. We do not know what warranted this operation, why National Security is conducting this operation, for what have they been arrested, what is their condition now, we do not know, because the family says they've not been contacted, they do not know what is happening to their relatives, they have not received a call from National Security as to what is going to happen to their relatives, and so they are worried, and that is why we are here today. So we are coming your way live from Ahojo. Like I said, my name is Erastus Asaredonko. We'll be getting you more on this development in our subsequent bulletins. But for now, thank you very much for watching our...
Right, so Erastus Asaredonko joins me over the phone line now with the very latest. Erastus, so you've been speaking with the lawyers of these suspects. What have they been telling you?
Well, so we do know that lawyer for the Indian businessman, lawyer Chinebu Akudia, was at the National Security Headquarters today. I've been trying to get through to him this evening to get to know the details of what he has been told and how they are doing, but he has not been able to respond to my calls yet. So maybe in the course of the night, we'll be able to get more info as to what transpired when he went there. The whole family, I must say, is at the National Security Headquarters because they traveled all the way from Kumasi today to go there and check on the Indian businessmen and the Ghanaians who were also in the house, who were arrested with them as well. So in the course of this evening, we'll be able to know what transpired.
But has there been any other updates apart from what you reported earlier in the day?
No, there have not been any other updates except that, you know, people are worried, especially the Indian business community within that area. They are worried that, one, they've not been told what exactly their kinsmen have done wrong, the crime they've committed, why they swoop on them with that heavily armed men. They think that they deserve to know, have the right to know what has led to this swoop and why they are being held up to now, for what charges they will be preferring against them. That is the concern that I've heard from the Indian community within the Ahojo enclave.
All right, thank you very much, Erastus Asaredonko, bringing us that update from Kumasi. Now to our Media Freedom Campaign, founder of the African University College of Communication, Kojo Yankah, has described the treatment of the media under the Kufuor administration as barbaric and retrogressive. In an exclusive interview with Kojo Yankah, former editor-in-chief of the Daily Graphic newspaper, said he is disappointed in the president's performance in the area of upholding media freedom.
Went into the streets and fought against the culture of silence. And for me, history repeats itself. If the state does not act, the people will act. It's a question of time, because see, you cannot silence people in this world now, today. It's if you want to take steps to silence people, you are mistaken. Why don't you become more open? Why don't you become more transparent? Why don't you, put out the news there and let people have, if you don't have anything to hide, come on, open up. But defend yourself when the media criticize or say anything against you. Don't go after them. It's barbaric. It's retrogression. You see, because otherwise then you realize that there is a deliberate effort to use the state police or state security to stop people, not just the media, to stop people from making their voices heard. And I'm saying that is short-lived. History has shown that that cannot last. One day you will get an uprising and you will not understand why it is coming, but it's coming from some of these things. So
I think that it's a sad period in Ghana's media history, but I'm from history. I realize that this is not going to last because there are people that at the end of the day will rise up. Why did we have, there are a lot of politicians who came to power because they were fighting against the culture of silence. History can repeat itself.
The current president is an example.
Sure, it's an example. Professor Dubois-Hene was an example. They all stormed into the limelight because of that. What prevents another group of people to do the same? History repeats itself. I mean, you don't, where we were going or where we, freeing the media and allowing people to talk, we should just let it go and allow the state machinery to defend themselves if they have any defense. Why not? I mean, if somebody goes to defame, we have laws. But to stop or to frighten journalists, it's a dangerous, track to follow, in my opinion.
Now, did you know that a meal of noodles takes about 13 hours to digest? Well, it does. Dietitians therefore advise that you should be taking several hours before bedtime so as to avoid especially cardiovascular diseases. Registered dietitian Frank Anyimedu has been speaking with Joy News' Nana Efuapoli about the risk associated with a meal that's become very convenient for most Ghanaians, especially at night.
Noodles have become a part of the Ghanaian cuisine. Caterers have developed recipes that are relished by many, especially in the evenings. Boil some noodles, strain the water, add vegetables, some spice, and throw in some protein, and you're good to go.
The maximum amount of sale I make in a day is 200 Ghana cedis.
It's a fast and convenient food, especially for many people who've described it as a light food.
Taking it in the morning, sometimes you can take it in the morning, but when I take it in the morning, I become very heavy. I feel like sleeping. Noodles is a very fast making food. And sometimes when you are tired after work, you need to just take some few seconds to eat and go to bed, rather than sitting at home, start preparing more food. Looking at the cholesterol and other things involved in it, it's not that too safe.
But from a dietitian's point of view, noodles mixed with vegetables and protein is considered a full meal that takes about 13 hours to digest. Registered dietitian Frank Anyimedu classified it as fatty food.
Additionally, most of the people who prepare the noodles do it with a lot of protein sources. And we also recommend that you should get at least one source of protein in your meal. A typical example is if somebody is preparing a spaghetti or maybe a noodle, as we know, the person can prepare it with even baked beans, canned fishes. It could be sardine, as we usually know, and it could also come with sausages, and others even with gizzard. So if you are counting the number of proteins in that noodle, you realize that the protein contents are high. And how it is prepared, it is stir fried. Others too involves deep frying. And once you fry or once you expose fats to extreme temperatures, even if your fat sources are good sources of fat, it becomes transformed, or the conformation of the fat changes to trans fats and saturated fat. So eventually you end up increasing your saturated fats and your trans fats, and that has a very direct impact on your cardiovascular conditions. You can even at a point in time have or experience what we call hypertension or maybe diabetes and other cardiovascular conditions. Realize that when you move around and you want to buy a noodle, it is prepared with a lot of baked beans. We don't recommend or we don't encourage intake of canned products. Now the reason is that most of the companies that come across or bring about the canned product tend to preserve the shelf life of what they are producing. They end up adding what we call the monosodium glutamate. It's a form of salt, and it has excessive sodium. And there are a lot of research findings that says that excessive consumption of sodium is a heart enemy, and the result is what we call the hypertension. So in as much as you have no genetic basis of or family history of hypertension, your diet and your lifestyle, if you keep on consuming a lot of noodles, a lot of the sodium that we are talking about, due to how it is prepared, the results could be hypertension or other metabolic conditions. We recommend that you take them with a lot of vegetables. You should select a single protein. If you are doing sausage, just do sausage alone. If you are doing big beans, I wouldn't recommend frequent intake of canned products. You could just cook beans and add it to it. And the time as well. You don't wait till 9 o'clock before you go and get your noodles from the street.
Some vendors say although they would rather add more vegetables to noodles, consumers prefer more eggs, sausages, canned fish, gizzard, and sometimes chicken, all in one meal.
I'm aware of the health implications, but some people wouldn't mind if you told them they still go ahead to buy regardless of the time because they are craving for it.
This story has one simple takeaway. Dietitians are advising you to eat your noodles several hours before you go to bed. Also eat sizable portions and add more vegetables instead of protein. Nana Ifwa Police Report, read to you.
And I'm Israel. Thank you very much for watching. You have a good night.